Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's Movie Blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well. Today, we'll be doing a little bit of the box office forecast for this weekend, what movies are expected to do well, and also where Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker will fall on this weekend. And yeah, just does not look good. The film just continues to drop off, which just goes to show you that the film has very little rewatchability factor, at least when it comes to audiences not really wanting to go see it. We know this because of the fact that it's dropped off about 50% every single week, and it's going to drop off yet another 41% this week when other films like Jumanji, The Next Level, Jumanji 2, which have been out for about as long, are continuing to do very well, have much smaller drop-offs from week 1, week 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., and have still continued to make tons of money and profit, and to this point are still more profitable than Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker, especially because of the production budgets being different, but also because the legs of Jumanji and The Next Level just are that much better. So, Bad Boys for Life is expected to come in at number 1 this weekend, which to me is kind of surprising because there's a new film called The Gentleman and also a new horror film called The Turning, which I figured might get into those number 1, number 2 spots. But Bad Boys for Life is going to continue to do very well in the domestic marketplace, making $28.1 million projected, which would bring its total to $114 million, and only a 55% drop from last weekend, which, when you consider that last weekend was a holiday weekend, is actually pretty impressive nonetheless, especially for the third film in the Bad Boys franchise, which, again, is a franchise I have very little interest in, but hey, good for you. Doolittle continuing to do very little, making $13.3 million, but if we're going to find any benefit to that, it had a very small drop-off from week 1 to week 2, with only a 39% expected projected drop-off, which really is not that bad when you think about it. As far as percentages go, as far as drop-offs from week 1 to week 2 go, but when you consider how much money that film cost to make and how much money it is making at this point, that would bring it up to $44.4 million here in the domestic market. It's pretty bad. That's a film that is already around $200 million in the loss, and likely by the end of its run will probably be at least $150 million in the red, making it one of the biggest box office bombs of 2020, and we just got started. 1917 expected to make another $13 million domestically, which would bring it to the $100 million mark here in the domestic marketplace, which I'm personally happy with because 1917 is probably one of the most beautiful films that I've seen this year. And, technically it is a 2019 film, and so I'm very happy to see that film getting a lot of attention that it is, and I think that more people should go see it because of just the sheer masterpiece of cinematography that is done in that film. When you have someone like Roger Deakins doing the cinematography for it, it's kind of hard to not appreciate the skill that dude has, and also the fact that he's able to make it look so seamlessly like a single shot. And then when you go just behind the scenes about the choreography that had to be done in order to get those very long takes, because yes, it's not just one single take, but there are a series of very long one-take, one-shot scenes. It's just very impressive that they were able to do all of that, especially with some actors that are really not all that well known. Obviously, there's some big names that are kind of as supporting characters behind the scenes, but when you have your two main guys that are pretty relatively unknown actors, it's very impressive of them to be able to pull off such a feat so early in their careers. Gentleman then is coming in fourth place this weekend, projected $12 million. So again, that's I believe was Guy Ritchie who is doing that film, and I'll go ahead and do everything live. I had someone criticize me in the comment section saying that I speak too fast, and hey, I know that I speak too fast, but that's okay, because that's just who I am. But anyway, The Gentleman is indeed directed and written, directed at the very least by Guy Ritchie, having pretty decent ratings, 8.1 on IMDb, 71% Rotten Tomatoes, which we all know does not mean a damn thing, and a 3 out of 4 on Roger Ebert. But of course, it's interesting that website is still called Roger Ebert, with, the man, the myth, the legend of the movie criticism circles being gone. I've always had issues with it saying Roger Ebert because it's not actually Roger Ebert, it's his website. But of course, anyone that's been following that understands that to this point in time. It's just one of those weird things that I care about. The Turning, a horror film that I have no intention on seeing, starring Finn Wolfhard, $6.9 million, which, again, we'll have to wait and see just how well it does in the foreign marketplace, compare that to its budget. Again, I'll do that full box office breakdown over on the Geeks and Gamers channel tomorrow. Once we get those official numbers, or once we get those official estimates coming in. And then you have Jumanji: The Next Level making another 6.7, and then boom, wow. So let's see, we've got first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh place, dropping all the way to seventh place. Last weekend, it came in fifth place, so it's continuing to drop off, being beaten out by Jumanji, which again has been out about the same amount of time because that film is just doing so much better. Is The Rise of Skywalker, which is projected to make a $4.9 million, which will, yes, bring it above the $501 million domestic range, but that's still a far cry from the around $530 million by Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, and well below the $620 million that The Last Jedi ended with. Of course, both of those numbers before you adjust for inflation. And then just underneath that, Just Mercy, which is a smaller independent Oscar bait film, only making $4.3 million. Little Women, and then Knives Out. And hey, kudos to Rian Johnson, and I will give kudos when kudos are due. Rian Johnson's Knives Out has been a very, very impressive film because it actually has now outperformed the box office projections that I even had for it. It has actually done better than around 50% of its total box office take, meaning that the film not only has pretty good legs, but has had such a good word-of-mouth campaign that it continues to perform and therefore is being one of the most profitable films of the year. I think it's already made about $100 million now at this point in time in profit, in net gain profit, which is incredibly impressive, not only for a whodunit, but also a Rian Johnson film, because last time I checked, Rian Johnson was the one of the many who destroyed Star Wars with his terrible film The Last Jedi, but it's still interesting nonetheless to see that he and Lionsgate have found some type of magic in this. Again, that film making $151 million here in the domestic marketplace, making even more overseas, and actually doing so well in China, it actually outperformed Star Wars. But of course, Star Wars has never really done well in China, but still the fact that the last film, the Skywalker saga, is doing less than a whodunit by Rian Johnson, I think that speaks volumes to anyone that's been following his career and been following the history of Star Wars and how those films tend to do overall. So that means that the overall box office as of right now for Rise of Skywalker is around $1.03 billion. For anyone wondering, currently Joker is at $1.07 billion because there was a re-release. So I'm sure some people will try and argue saying, oh, well, can we really count that as a part of the actual release numbers and the release data? Well, don't worry, because a lot of these box office websites do provide the original run numbers and separate those out from re-releases. But I'm wondering if, because it was so close to its original release, if they just wouldn't even count that technically as a re-release, since it's the same movie just being put back into theaters after having just been taken out of theaters, because that film was in theaters for a very long time. Regardless of that, when it comes to actual net gains and net profits, Rise of Skywalker at this point in time, when giving them the benefit of the doubt, meaning we assume that $275 million production budget is real, which I have my doubts about, and that they spent the standard 1.5 times the budget on the marketing campaign, meaning the overall cost would be roughly around $500 million, which again, I think is being incredibly generous to them. The film at this point in time is getting close to around $200 million in net profit. Do I think it's made that much money in profit? Probably not, but that would, again, by the end of its run, based on the fact that it's continuing to slow down, make it the second lowest grossing Star Wars film in history when you look at the actual net gains and net profits, with only one film being behind it, and that, of course, is Disney's Star Wars Solo, Solo: A Star Wars Story, which lost an incredible $180 million. But all I can really do is continue to look at these numbers and just think to myself, how can anyone see anything else but failure here? If this was a standard blockbuster, if this was a brand new film on the market, this would be incredible. No doubt about it. If this was just a random original sci-fi movie and it made over $1 billion, that would be a very good number, especially when you look at the amount of money they spent on it. That would be a huge success. The problem is that this is not just your standard sci-fi movie. This is also not the first in a series of sci-fi movies. This is the last in a long series dating back to 1977. We were made to believe that this was supposed to be the big endpoint. We were, again, pushed with all the nostalgia. Hey, everybody, Emperor Palpatine is going to be back. We're going to bring back these actors. We're going to bring back the original characters, and it's going to be great, and you're going to love it. And we were just served crap on a platter. And now Star Wars has fallen off so much that we're seeing hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue lost between films. And now with everything going on with the Kathleen Kennedy news about her not liking the scripts for Obi-Wan Kenobi, even though she said the scripts were done not too long ago and said, oh, everything's done, we're just waiting for production to start. And now all of a sudden she's sending people home. Again, go ahead and look at the articles yourself. She is indeed sending people home from the set because she wants the scripts to be worked on. Either means a couple things. Either one, this was something that was brought up last night on Friday Night Tights, I believe it was being brought up by Annie Trecker, who said he thinks that this could be them trying to push the series back so that she's not involved with it at all. But I kind of doubt that, just because if she indeed is the one holding this up because of scripts, this might be her attempt to try and say, hey, I'm about to leave, or I'm about to get fired, or whatever it is that's going to happen when her contract comes up. And I want you to see what you could have had. I want you to see how great I am. And I think that it's honestly her meddling with this script again, because either one, she wants it to be her vision and not the vision of others, or two, she is just so incompetent that she has yet again put herself into another series, just like the previous movies and previous series, and has decided to just completely cause chaos, and is leading to yet another film or series going through behind the scenes production chaos. And that is just the absolute staple and will be the legacy of the Kathleen Kennedy regime of Lucasfilm. Nonstop chaos, nonstop behind the scenes fighting, leading to subpar products. And even when you go to a series like like The Mandalorian, which basically seemed to have very little of her of her fingerprints really on the product at all. Yeah, she's listed as a producer at one point in time, but when you look at almost all the the marketing that was done for it, almost all of the speeches and the interviews, she did very little as far as that is concerned. I mean, going back to even the Star Wars Celebration, when you had people like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau introduced, she pretty much kind of went into the background like she had very little to do with it. And guess what? We could tell, because that show was leaps and bounds better than anything Disney Star Wars has really given us up to this point in time. But even that show has its flaws. So I'm wondering if we can finally get past the Kathleen Kennedy era of Lucasfilm and get someone who's actually competent up there as far as being able to tell an overall story. Maybe, just maybe, we can get some good Star Wars again. But again, I still have my doubts because of the people that are running the show behind the scenes. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about the box office. Do you think The Rise of Skywalker is just dying off and is just going to die a very slow, painful death and just creep up this number and possibly even still come in underneath Joker? I still think that's a possibility, especially since Joker is indeed getting that very minor re-release, which has now brought it up to around $1.07 billion last time I checked. But because you have this continued drop-off domestically, you're also seeing a similar drop-off in the foreign marketplace. I really doubt the film's going to make that much more money. I mean, as I would say it would be lucky to get $515 million by the end of its domestic run, which again is pretty sad and pathetic when you compare that to the other films in the franchise, especially when you adjust earlier films for inflation. And also, I would be interested to see what that actual, foreign total is going to be by the end of its run. But also, let me know your thoughts about any of these films that have been mentioned. So, Bad Boys for Life, have you seen that? Doolittle, 1917. The Gentleman. Gentleman is actually a movie that I personally have some interest in because I tend to like Guy Ritchie's work. I think that he's a very unique individual, and so it's definitely a film I want to check out. Turning, I will definitely not be seeing, but you guys are freaking awesome. So, please make sure you stay tuned to the channel. Tonight, we'll have our typical Saturday Night Live stream. Might do some streaming on Twitch sometime today, actually. So yes, I do have a Twitch channel. Have not used it a whole lot because once you do partner stuff on Twitch, you can only stream there. And so since I've been playing a lot more Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, I have a new headset coming in today, and so hopefully I'll be able to try that out, play around with that, either streaming on my channel or seeing if anyone else in the Fandom Menace, Geeks and Gamers community is interested in doing some co-op streaming or anything like that. But anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless. And now I want to give a shout out to my January Patreon members: animation commentator Brian P, Dion, Divex, Elizabeth M, Enrique Evangelista, Fan Addicts of Film, Father Christopher Miller, Hail Father, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Wiener Dog Clan, Harold Francis, the Hunky Chunky Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jeffrey Toon, J.J. Jonathan Jerembeck, Lady T, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin, Orange Hat Reviews, Outpost Dyer, Perpetual Punster, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Sir Lanceloto, Theodore Bendon, The DJD Show, Those Two Ball Guys, and Tina B. and Sharon Ferguson. Sharon! Thank you so much for being Patreon members. And of course, to my Subscribe Star peeps, Larry, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, G2Cool99, Darkstar57, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., US 888209 Fast, Dean Heiss, Harold Francis, J-Rod the Beer Guru, Nevalan G. Adams, and ZK Man. Thank you so much for supporting me this month. You guys freaking rock. And a special news shout out to Jeff Lebowski and Steve Glasker. God bless.